So apparently PERISCOPE, made by humans, shat itself. GabSmacked gave me half the chocolate already, and so I'm going to give you some little bit of advice. I'm taking the other half and leaving. Bye.
Here we go.
Yes, I'm back. Of course I am. Where did you think I was going? You think I would leave the GabSmacked? Do you know how much chocolate that loser gives me? Pompous. What? I'm right here. And the point is... can I scope? Denied! I'm just kidding. Do we feel happiest when making music? The answer is yes. It brings me back to the days of DJing. Rose City Rachel. Back in the days 15 years ago when we were in the clubs and selling hundreds of mixed CDs. He asked me if it makes you feel happy. I said, I don't know if it makes me feel happy, but it gives me energy and my problems seem smaller during the making of music. And I think about music even when I'm not making music. All right? Now, the doc said it seems to give you some sort of rejuvenating experience. Oh, I feel so rejuvenated. You can have one once I finish my chocolate. You can relate? You know it. So yeah, you can go to YouTube at GabSmacked, and if I have a playlist called The DJ Years, I think. You can go in and I've got some tracks in there from back in the day. All right, so what he said was that it is good to know what rejuvenates you. It is important to know what things lead to healthy self-care. Yes. Music can now be one option amongst many to help yourself. Make time for music in your life. That came back to Google goals. What's happening? I never knew, broski, I never knew whether I was a great DJ or I was good at it, or whether it was an illusion. I did not know. It was hard to tell because I had a hardcore following, but out of that, there were people in the club who were just drunk and didn't really care anyway. Sort of like Periscope. Hardcore following plus the drunk people. Hello, everyone. That is that in the past, the unconscious driver that rises up within to make someone angry comes from a past memory, a past traumatic memory. And that memory was generated at the time of the person having that memory being the inner child, being the child that wasn't the adult version that they are today. And because of that, the memory still gives the effect of you thinking that there is a problem that needs immediate fixing, which is not correct. Because if you are misunderstood as a child, it can be life and death. If you're misunderstood at school, you can get a detention. Parents don't listen to you. Adults don't believe you. Whereas it's important to understand that now we can integrate the adult into the situation. So the way that I do it is that I picture someone that I unresolved. I picture someone that I respect, someone who's an adult that I think can handle themselves. So Peter Unplugged, or my doctor, or my mum, or some CEO of some company. You just look at them, you're like, they're not going to give a damn if someone like me gives them an insult. And then I realize that the way I see them is actually who I am today. I'm also that large dude who can take care of themselves emotionally, physically. And if I were to say something about me, right, my younger self looking at me as the adult, I would say, who cares? He's not going to care. He's awesome. And so I had to realize that that person I'm looking at is me. The younger, more anxious version lives inside of this adult body that can handle all of that stuff. And so what happens is that you are not scared of people believing false narratives anymore. Because people who believe them and decide to just believe them immediately, they're not worth your time, because they're the type of ideologues that will just believe anything that someone tells them. And then the people that look at it and want to investigate further will investigate further and then make their own decision. Therefore, it actually alleviates the fear, because whatever people say does not affect your life anymore in the way it does when you're a child. Pompous in a human body. You're all a bunch of losers. Pompous says he has a question. What is it like to be stupid? That's your question? What did you think I was going to ask? Have you looked at something called authoring, about reflection on the past? Yeah, the self-authoring program is from Jordan Peterson. But yes, that's part of the reason I wrote my first book about self-reflection on the past. Yes, so in my book, there's an older Jamil explaining the younger Jamil And then there's an older Jamil explaining the older Jamil who's explaining the younger Jamil. So that's why it gets a bit confusing. But yes, that was part of it. Found it quite useful. That's awesome. Well, that would explain why you manage yourself so well on Scope. So integrating the adult, respectable, likable, successful, intelligent, strong, smart Gabriel still requires mental effort, because I don't feel like I'm that person. I have to remind myself that, yes, I am that person. I'm that person that if I saw me standing over there, I would think, oh, they're a cool person. I'd love to talk to them. I'd like to learn more about them, argue with them, understand how they think. And I have to realize that that person over there is me. And I have to mentally integrate those two people constantly. Jamil, that's beautiful in Arabic. It is Rose City Rachel. How many languages does Rose City Rachel speak? So, هل تتكلمين العربية أيضا? I feel like I would think I was a loser. That's why I have a note in my calendar which says that I am no longer the helpless child. And anyone on the Gab Life channel this morning heard me say that. I have affirmations once or twice a week. It's a constant intellectual exercise to integrate that person with who you believe that you are. Now, that takes years because the emotions take a while to catch up with the logic. However, one of the reasons that it takes time is because you need to generate new experiences with people who mirror the new adult, respectable you that they see you as. So spending more time with people that see you that way, and you understanding that that's how they see you and accepting that, is something called an accurate mirror, or a mirror that's closer to accurate. Thank you. So in the past, with a lot of abuse that I suffered, and other people might have had, abuse stories as well or whatever, what you're having reflected back at you is a distorted mirror of who you actually are. They naturally get to do them. Yeah, that's right. So you have to then realize which mirrors are distorted and which are closer to reality. Now, how do you know that? Well, it took a very long time to even understand that random strangers on Periscope want to come and hang out when we talk. And that sounds like a strange concept, because if you have a distorted image of yourself, like I did back at school when people went out of their way to make my life hell, it doesn't make sense. And so the only thing you can do is realize that the mirror that you are looking at to see yourself is it's providing a delusion. It's providing an illusion. And it's via distortion. All right? It's a disjunction between who you are and who you see yourself as. All right? What you can do is learn to recall the mirror that reflects the version of yourself that can cope with these situations. When you're going through something unbelievably difficult, which we all will and have and probably are going through at some point, it is important to be able to recall that mirror. Now, where do you find that mirror? For me, I find that mirror in writing, in having people around me now that I know me for who I am. And so I can talk to them and be free to be who I am in those situations. One of them is the doctor. And that was deliberate. That was a setup. Someone who understands autism and so can understand how I think without me having to explain it. Okay. In the past, that kind of disjunction, having the distorted mirror, would cause the child version of me, and some of you, I'm guessing, to have pain of memories of me not being mirrored accurately, and the associated threat with the inaccurate reflection. Because if a teacher misunderstands you, as what happened to me at school, instead of thinking I had autism, they thought I was a bad boy. And so I was yelled at. My capacity as a human being was rendered diminutive. I was suspended from school. All of these things for people not understanding that I had Tourette's. The teachers actually gave me a detention once for blurting out in class. I believe that's called Tourette's, right? So that's an inaccurate reflection. And as a kid, they are in control of your life in the sense that they can make your days at school miserable. They can put you in detention. They can allow the other kids to make fun of you and join in on the teasing. I mean, it was the 80s and 90s. Obviously, teachers hopefully don't do that anymore. So those experiences have to be offset by new experiences where you hang out with people that respect what you say and take you seriously. That's a good one. Reality is something that we can't tell because we live in our skulls, but we can get closer to it. And when we get closer to it, it means that what we predict in our version of our understanding actually comes true. So an example is that there was someone who needed help that we couldn't provide in the Patreon group. So they had to go. And it was a few months of them with a lot of conversation, but it wasn't sinking in, so they had to go. And my prediction was that they would immediately thumbs down the YouTube videos and then start slandering, and because they can't accept responsibility for their behavior. And then within 24 hours, that's exactly what they did. And so I don't know if I'm reflecting reality accurately, but I was reflecting it accurately enough to be able to predict what someone else would do. So it's closer than something that would predict the opposite. That's the best way to explain what I think reality is, or how close we can get to it. So the point is that you increase your experiences, and then what you do is you end up having hundreds and hundreds over it's a small shift each day, and without realizing it, the direction is more important than what you're achieving, right? Because you want to make sure that you're not traveling the same path you were traveling yesterday if that path is heading you into a worse place, more misery, depression, anxiety, losing friends, etc. You want to nudge it slightly off course. So maybe today you will try and build one positive memory of yourself, for example. There's something that I learned recently, which many people probably already know, but with autism, it's a delayed developmental disorder, or pervasive. Those positive. It is hard. It's not easy. Exactly. It's not easy. It takes work, but it happens as you do the work. It happens slowly. It happens over years. That you came to believe because of the trauma. That's perfect. The reflection mirror conserves a negative belief because of trauma. Correct emotional experience. Exactly. So I realized yesterday that I cannot protect others with my honorable intentions. Now that might seem like a banal statement, but that was a massive deal for me to realize, that I cannot protect people with my honorable intentions. Now, someone with autism, it's very hard to understand that, because with autism, you work from the inside out. You don't understand the concept without intense therapy, which I've gone through for years, that there are other perspectives. And I talk about that all the time because I didn't know about it, so I'm obsessed with talking about it. And that other perspectives, not only of you, but of themselves, that are different to how you see them. So there's all these different narratives that are playing all around within people, hence politics, right, and disagreements and biases. So I used to think, well, if I'm doing the right thing, there's no problem. When in fact, the real language I should have been using at the time was, if I believe I'm doing the right thing, then there should be no problem. But that doesn't factor in all of the variables that I have not been able to consider. And so I think I'm doing the right thing when sometimes I might not be. Okay? That's a very difficult concept to learn. Autism has almost a bimodal distribution in terms of how people, the phenotype. You either have people with severe mental impairment or incapacities, or they are savants. You don't have someone down the middle who's just a regular dude who happens to have autism. Autism skews the brain in one of those two directions. Now, someone like myself with savantism, it affects me by blinding them to a whole context of a scenario so they can seem foolish when they are not actually fools. One of the examples is, and this is a fictitious, partially true, partially fictitious example. I've paused chats for a second. I'll get back to them in a second. I spoke about the kid, the 15-year-old that was arrested for touching girls' knees on trains. Now, as I've said before, he, with autism, was just copying what other guys were doing, but he was missing the context. The context was that those guys were the girls' boyfriends. You would know that as a neurotypical, you'd be like, but that's the boyfriend. But you wouldn't know that if you have autism if you haven't been told that, because that's a specific rule that you need to be taught to understand it. And so if you see a guy touching a girl on the knee, you think you should touch a girl on the knee. Now imagine that same kid was a brilliant mathematician. The normal question that people would ask is, how can he be a brilliant mathematician and do something so stupid? Well, actually, he's missing physical context, which is that guy and that girl that he's witnessing are in a relationship. Now, think about this, right? You can't see a bubble that says relationship. You can't see a sign that says relationship. You somehow know. That somehow knowing is what people with autism don't have. Now, if I see a guy and a girl together, my brain tells me now, after some embarrassing experiences, they must be in a relationship because they're talking. And I have to tell myself that each time to make sure that if I see them interacting in a certain way, that I don't go and copy them unless it's with someone with whom I'm in a relationship with. Okay, so it takes a lot of logical processing. Negative experience, which is my downfall. Now, negative experiences are awesome if you turn them into a blessing. I'll just leave you guys with Pompous for a bit because I've got to go do some stuff. Pompous, can you come in and talk to them? I don't want to.